Hey everyone, welcome to the last in the installment of Out with the Old and In with the New, right? So this is the last, this is number 4 in that series, Out with the Old, In with the New, because we went through the first one we talked about is doing your annual review. Secondly, we talked about doing internal audits for your programs and services and just the whole organization on a whole. Somebody's echoing. And then the last one we talked about was program evaluations. And then this one is strategic planning. So it's success straight ahead, right? Strategic planning for 2021. Because you need to have done all the 3 things that we talked about first to get to this point. Because we're pulling all that information, all those evaluations that you did, we're not going to pull all that information into the strategic planning for how you move forward successfully in 2021. So again, welcome to Mission Impact. My name is Tracy V. Allen. I'm a social entrepreneur, enterprise and entrepreneur impact strategist, the owner of TBA Consulting. I have over 20 years of experience in this field, and I'm joined by my co-host, who also have over 20 years of experience in this field. So together we all have about 60 years of experience plus right here, right? So Ty, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Ty Boone. I'm a nonprofit success strategist and program development strategist with Ty Boone Enterprises, with, like Tracy said, 20 plus years of experience in this work, y'all. That's been a long time, y'all. a long time, definitely.
I was having a little issue there.
Yeah.
I am Daphne Perez. I am nonprofit consultant, philanthropic advisor, and social strategist for On Good Ground Strategic Solutions. And of course, I have over 20 plus years out here in these nonprofit streets. So yeah, we have 60 plus years cleaning up the streets. So welcome.
Yeah. So, like I said, today we're going to be talking about strategic planning for 2021, and I'm passionate about some strategic planning, right? I am so passionate about strategic planning because just like a business plan, a strategic plan is your roadmap to success. It's where your benchmarks are held, where it's a visual that you can look at and see what you're supposed to be doing, how you're supposed to be doing, how long it should take you to do it, who should be doing what, and most of all, what are the benchmarks to success, where you can put that check mark next to it like a to-do list and say, hey, this is done. Then what's the next step, right? So that is what a strategic plan is. But to get the strategic plan together, we have to pull the information, like I said before, from all of those evaluations that we did to come up with the next steps for moving forward in the process. Because if you don't know what has gone on in your organization, how can you make decisions as to what should happen next? All right. The only way to do that, doing all the evaluations, that's why we did it this way. We have to figure out what happened in the old part of our lives, right? It's like going to therapy, right? If you have something that's bothering you and you keep making the same decisions over and over, obviously there's something internal going on that's causing you to react the way you are. But the only way you can really deal with it is to go to therapy, figure that out, and then the therapist will help you to heal and make decisions that will better impact your life moving forward. Same thing in your business and organization. You got to figure out what has been going on, doing all those evaluations, the annual report, seeing, did you make success? You pivoted in 2020 because it was a rough year. Things, you probably had to come out of your building. You had to go virtual. How did that work? Was it an easy transition? Did you lose staff members? Were people not picking up what they were supposed to be doing in their jobs? Whatever it is, come 2021, doesn't really seem like we're going back to business as usual in the first part of 2021. So how are you going to continue to move forward? What adjustments do you need to make in the systems and processes that you currently work with in order to make strives in 2021. All of this, it goes into the process of sitting down with your team members and coming up with those systems and processes, and then the strategies for getting it done and holding people accountable for the roles that they play in this process, right? So one of the things I like to tell people is that when you're dealing with a strategic plan, or when you're doing strategic planning, you can't say, I want to help, say, 100 kids increase their reading levels by 1 grade level. Okay, that sounds great into itself right there. But how long is it going to take you to achieve that goal? Are you going to achieve that goal in 1 semester? Is it going to take you 2? Is it going to take you a 12-month calendar year? How long are each one of these sessions going to be? So are you going to meet with each child for 30 minutes? Are you meeting with them for an hour? Is it going to be once a week? Is it going to be 4 times a week? Is it going to be 5 days a week? You know, how is this going to be done? And in that strategic plan as well. And if those goals are not met, so you have weekly benchmarks or monthly benchmarks, if those goals are not being met by that particular child, then what are the interventions? All of these things go into your strategic plan. So it's not just putting, I've seen people just like want to put random things on papers and call it a strategic plan, but you're not thinking deep. You're not taking the time to really dive in. It has to be like, if not, then what? Right? You got to think about it that way when you're creating your strategic plan. If not, so if I don't meet this goal, then what happens? And if I do meet this goal, still again, then what happens, right? So if you said you wanted to make $100,000 in 6 months, or you wanted to make let's say you wanted to make $100,000 in a year, and 3 months into the year, some miracle happened. You were pounding that pavement, you were getting it done, you were getting in touch with your market. You made $100,000 in 3 months. Does that mean that you stop working for the rest of the year? Same thing if you say you wanted to get to serve 100 clients in your social enterprise or your nonprofit for that social cause, and you got those 100 people. Doesn't mean that you stop taking clients. What is your contingency plan to move forward? What is your capacity plan to move forward? Do you have a roster of people that you can now hire or call or bring in to fill that gap of the services that you now need to provide because you had more increase in services than you expected? So all of these things are things that we need to think about when we're doing our strategic planning for 2021. Ty.
You mentioned benchmarks to success, and I think this is one of the biggest parts that we're missing, because like you said, we'll get our organizations or our businesses started, and we know that we have to have a strategic plan, right? We're like, okay, no, we have to have a business plan, and we get this paper, and it's pretty, and it's put together, and we put it on the shelf, and we don't think about it anymore, right? And we're not knowing whether or not we're progressing along our path. Like, are we meeting the success that we're wanting to meet? And these benchmarks, we kind of forget about them. You're like, so how do I know if my goal is to make $100,000 this year? How do I even know that I'm on the way there? So at what point do I look back at what I'm doing and say, oh, okay, so we made 5,000 this month, or we're not doing that. And I think that's where we're missing the mark a lot when it comes to things like bringing things back together, like programs, being able to understand how we're supposed to evaluate. We're missing it because we're not paying attention to the benchmarks, and we're not doing them when we're supposed to be doing them. So if you wouldn't waste a year in a program doing things that you didn't have to do if you paid attention to whether or not you're meeting the benchmark. Because if I said that we're going to serve 100 people and I know that by July I need to have served 25, I know that already. So when July happens and I've only served 10, that gives me an opportunity right then to call in the forces, call in the support. Look, call Tracy, be like, Tracy, girl, I don't even know where the other 50 people coming from because something's wrong, right? Call in the consultant. That gives you an opportunity to do that and still meet your mark. So if you never look back, and this is not something that you wait until December 31st to do. You do this all along, and you really have to sit down and plan this, especially if you're running a business, you're running a nonprofit organization. That's a part of your job.
Yes.
You have things that you do every day. It amazes me sometimes with people coming in and their EDs and their, especially the lone leader EDs, and they go, I don't know what to do. You got stuff to do every day. Every day you got something to do. If it's just sitting back here and looking at your benchmarks from your strategic plan,
Yes.
find out whether or not you met them for the month. You got something to do every day, and then deciding, okay, if I did not meet this, or what system did I miss? What system should I have in place to ensure that this is going on? Do I need to get something for case management so I can know how to better track my numbers? Do I need to get someone to help me in accounting so I can know where the money is going? Do I need to get somebody to offer me some program support so we can know whether or not we're making an impact? And you do this early on so that by the time you get into this time of year, you ready for something like Giving Tuesday, you got a whole bunch of data to bring in.
Yes.
You started, and you can get extra visible, and you can start telling people, oh yeah, we accomplishing stuff because our goal was 100 people by December 31st. We got 101. So you look really good. We have exceeded our goal. If your goal was one person and you got two, when you communicate to the fund, you like, we exceeded our goal by 100%. And you
didn't lie. You didn't lie. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think sometimes what happens is, especially with those smaller nonprofit organizations, when it comes to strategic plans, is that they fear that, it's like the writing on the wall. And once they have it, it's like, okay, it's so much for them to look at and to actually walk through that they actually fear it. So they kind of like get it, and they pay for it and they put it to the side. But utilizing that document actually helps you with course correction when you need it. Or you falling short in areas. Is there something that needs to be done right now so that when you get to the point, and I know in area of federal grants, one of the things that you don't want to do is get to the last minute and notice you did not meet your numbers, you have not spent all your money, or you've overspent in areas, and now is that you have to find money somewhere else. So that document is important, especially for those starting and emerging nonprofit organizations. So I'm speaking to those that are starting, the smaller ones. Don't think that you have to be a large nonprofit or somebody who's been in the nonprofit area for years in order to have that document and it be effective for you.
And chew it up, take it in bite-sized pieces, right? Because you have projections in your strategic plan, and sometimes it gets overwhelming because you're trying to work toward a vision versus being able to operate in your mission, right? So your mission is what you are doing right now. Your vision is what you are planning to do in the future. Your strategic plan helps you to eye your capacity toward that vision, right? So as you go along, you're planning for capacity, your capacity building along the way. So this is why you have business plans and strategic plans that forecast things, because they're looking at that vision of it. But every step of the benchmarks, that's the mission part of it. So what are you doing right now? How do you work toward that goal of reaching your vision? And just break it up, because sometimes when you're looking at, I got a 5-year plan, or I got a 3-year plan, or I got it gets overwhelming. Break it up into pieces. And what are we going to do today? What do we do this month? How are we going to carry that out? And how are we going to be able to operate in our mission today? And before you know it, you start to realize your vision, because it starts to unfold, because you're working in little pieces and you're accomplishing this thing, and you have this benchmark, you meet it, you celebrate it. And before you know it, you're on year 5.
I completely agree with that. And it is overwhelming for a lot of people to think 3 to 5 years down the line, especially when nothing is working out in this moment, right? So you're losing hope. How am I going to think 5 years down the line and I'm not making any money right now, right? So thinking from maybe not week to week, because that's kind of hard, because it's so quick. A week goes by so quickly that maybe thinking a month at a time. Just creating small strategic plans for the month. And then as you start, like Ty says, you start seeing those benchmarks and you start smiling and things start going off in your head and you're like, oh, great. Then you start doing quarterly strategic plans. And then once you master those, then you start doing the yearly strategic plans. And then you start doing the projections for years down the line, because you're seeing the growth and the success in the strategies and the steps that you're taking, that implementation process and the follow-up, and your outcomes are starting to come together. So you start really seeing that project. But you cannot move forward in life without some type of plan. You cannot be like when you were in the bathroom in elementary school and everybody was in there wrapping up that toilet paper and throwing it up in the ceiling to see whose own can stick. Nah, you can't do that here, right? You're going to need to get some crazy glue to stick it to that ceiling. And that's what your strategic plan is. It's the crazy glue that sticks your mission to your activities. And that's my wrap up.
I like the crazy glue thing. And I mean, I like the, when you're breaking this up into parts, being able to work on it into pieces, but knowing that planning is a process. We plan it out, girl, in nonprofit and social entrepreneur, like everything is a plan. You got to have a plan for a plan for the plan, and a plan for that plan, and one for that one, and then a plan for this one. Everything is a plan. And they're constantly changing in some way, right? On the last talk, we talked about the fact that trends change and directions change, and things like COVID happens, and you have to pivot. So always think about how you can address this plan, and if something needs to change, how do you change it? So you don't have to be completely married to it. You want to stay within your mission, but I mean, it's good to revisit it, month to month, or quarter to quarter, year to year, so you can know if something needs to be changed, then let's change this. If you're trying to serve, if you want to serve 2,000 people in the after school program, and COVID says you can't go to the after school program. So now what do? Right? So how do you make this happen? And folks tired of Zoom. They don't want to go on Zoom. So what do you do now? How do you still serve? So you want to make sure, and in 2021, which is the year that we're in when this is doing, you want to look at what your goals were, what kind of strategies did you set out for in your strategic plan, what were you going to implement in 2021, and look at that, revisit it to see how you're going to still make this happen. Because you still have to serve, you still have to meet your goals. Funders don't care. Funders know, they're aware that COVID took place, but they still have goals that they want to meet. If the funders' philanthropic goal was to provide food or to reduce or eradicate homelessness, they still have the goal. They don't care if COVID happened and you can't. People still hungry. If you're trying to save lives, people's lives still need saving. So how are you going to still do this with everything going around? Take a look at your strategic plan and see where you need to change it.
And my last and wrap up is know that it's not something that's edged in stone. I think that people think that, okay, we put it on paper and that's it. It's on paper and I can't change it, or nothing has to change. But the point of the strategic plan is for you to look at it and see what things may have to change. As Tracy said in the beginning, if this, then what? If it happens, then what? If it doesn't happen, then what? That actually speaks to the fact that there will be some change. So know that, and don't go in it looking as, okay, if I put it on paper, then I'm kind of stuck. I'm married to it. There's no divorce. No separation of it, because it can't change.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback on what Ty said, I like to say this all the time. In nonprofits and social enterprises, you're always planning to plan, to plan, to plan, to plan some more. The planning never stops, right? And that goes back to what Daphne said. Again, another fluid document. It is not etched in stone. You are not married to every single thing on that paper. Because if you say you had your strategic plan in 2020 and COVID happened, you had to pivot, which means what? So did that strategic plan, right? It needed to pivot along with you. You can't continue to carry out the strategic plan if you pivoted. Like, understand that it's a fluid document and it's going to be constantly changing all the time. So again, thank you for joining us today for Mission Impact. We hope that the information that we gave you helps you to create impact in your mission and make your community better. Until next time, this is the last again in the series of Out with the Old and In with the New. We culminated it with creating that strategic plan, which is your first step. Just the first. Remember I said you got to be planning to plan some more, right? So this is the first step in getting success in 2021. Thank God 2020 is done with. All right. Until next time, bye everyone.